Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love. It is my absolute pleasure to host Lisa Sakai. After trying careers in Hollywood, education, and then insurance, Lisa found her calling in planning and guiding her clients to leverage their dollars to live the lifestyle they love now. Lisa, welcome to Life of Love.
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh my goodness, this is so great. In our behind the scenes pre-interview, I'm just really excited to bring your message to the audience. And I would love to give you a chance to share your background of you bounced around a little in your careers, but like what was that light bulb moment? How did you know that you were going to face this masculine energy of money and bring it to women and empower women? So just share, please. I'm so excited to hear this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did bounce around. I'm actually very thankful I did. Of course, sometimes I go and I would say, oh, well, it'd be so much easier if I started, 20 years earlier in the industry. But I have been in for 12 years. So this is definitely my longest lasting one. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. And like many LA kids, I thought I was going to be in Hollywood and I was going to be a screenwriter and I was going to do all that. And I went to school in Ohio, and then I came back and I worked in the Hollywood industry for about, I would say, two to 3 years. And everybody was fine. I didn't have a problem with anybody, but it just wasn't uh, satisfying me. And I think when you're in your early 20s, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know who you are really at that point. And I was working for a high profile producer, really nice man. I never had any issues with him, but he loved a clean car. He loved having his car washed and detailed at least 4 times a week. So I was getting his car washed again for the fourth time that week. And I was just sitting down, and it'd been a long week. In Hollywood, you work very long hours and you're expected to jump on planes and, kind of put your life on hold for everything. And I remember sitting there and they had greenlit a project that I thought was not in alignment with my values as somebody that felt like 16-year-olds probably shouldn't be watching the movie that they greenlit, which thankfully I don't think ever came out. Um, but I was just sitting there and I was thinking, is this what I want in life? And I just thought, I work really hard. I still work crazy hour days and even doing my own business now. And I just thought, if I'm going to work this hard, I want to make a difference for people. I want to help people. And while some people might argue making films helps people, it helps inspire them, it helps bring entertainment to them, I wanted to directly help people. So I went in that afternoon and I put in my resignation. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I got on monster.com because that's what we did back then to find a job. And I went and I looked and I went into being a teacher. So I became a teacher's assistant and went complete opposite from Hollywood. And so I went into teaching, and that was wonderful. And I still love kids to this day. I think they're some of the most, you can learn so much from children. I think they're just amazing. But politics, and I'm not even talking about, Democrats, Republicans. I'm just talking about internal politics of schools and that kind of thing just started weighing on me after about 6 years. And I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. So I got on Monster again and I searched for careers transitioning after school. And I found a company that does insurance, and they also do um, investments and that kind of stuff. And they love teachers. They actually put out an ad for teachers that were looking to transition. And I realized they love teachers in the financial industry because we don't speak financial lingo. We speak in a way that people can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we're used to teaching very complicated subjects in a way that's not so complicated. And so I started in the world of finance, which is not a place I thought I'd ever be. I was
Yeah.
not good with finance. We can definitely go into that story if you want, now or down the line. But it was it was an interesting transition, and it's been 12 years, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Mm. Well, I love your message, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they want people that care about helping other people, and you're empowered when you're running your own finance business to make those decisions you might have felt paralyzed in the school system. You're just
Yeah.
that's I worked in the school for a little while, um, as a speech pathologist, and I know the dynamics that our teachers go through a lot. So I honor that, and your story is always about your alignment, and I think that's beautiful because you were able to pivot and you didn't stay in something that wasn't in alignment. And I think that's what you bring to financial advising. When I read your bio, you're looking at it through the lens of, well, what makes sense for people on an everyday basis? And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because living a life of love means abundance. It means having joy. And I am never going to deny that money can bring joy. The gooey money, like, bring it. Like, please, like, we need to get over this idea that to be spiritual and happy, you live with as a pauper, right? Like,
Hmm.
we have strong spiritual people who are abundant. And, I'm not talking about frauds or people that are taking advantage of other people, because there's definitely that in whatever business you're in.
Hmm.
I'm just talking about living your best life. And because you're abundant and you're happy, people want to emulate you. And that's it's part of your whole picture. It's part of all the dynamics of your life of love. So thank you for agreeing to being on my show.
Happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah. So tell me, my question was, when you're talking to somebody and you're asking, and this is something that I took note of when you first started talking, was that when you're young, you had no idea what you wanted.
Mhm. Yeah.
And how do you get to people to let them know what their idea of financial abundance is? I mean, because we tend to plug into the system where it's like, okay, pay your mortgage, pay your bills, pay your taxes. If you have money left over, you might go on a trip, or, plug in your 401k. And how do you make it more dynamic? How do you make it where people have, I want to say, their individuality to make decisions based on what their goals are? Like, how do you go through the process of finding out what's important to that person, and again, back to their alignment? Like, tell me more about that process, because I just am very
Yeah.
curious.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful question. So, it's funny that you asked that because that's kind of why I started planning differently. So I do traditional financial advising. I help with investments and planning and all that. But I was sitting down and like I said, it had been 12 years in the business, but this was about 10 years in. And I sat down and I realized that I was talking to a couple that was very different than most of the clients I had worked with in the past. And they were saying the same exact goals that everybody else was saying. I want to retire. I want to travel. I want to spend time with my family. And I'm not saying that these aren't people's goals, but they're very general.
Mm-hmm.
And and if we stay at that general level, then there's no personalizing it, I guess. And so
Mm-hmm.
essentially, when I started writing down those goals, I started asking them, well, what does travel mean to you? Where are we going first? And nobody had asked them that. And they'd worked with other financial advisors before. And they said, we don't know. And I said, so day you retire, where are we going? And they had no clue because nobody had asked them that. And they said that they wanted to give back in charity to charities and to give back to society. And I said, where are we giving to? I have no idea. And just nobody had really asked them that. She sat back and I remember her saying, I guess these goals weren't really goals because they were just kind of like what we were supposed to say. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, that's exactly, we have what society has told us that we should want in life. And we have this idea that you're supposed to be, good little boys and girls and save your money. And then in retirement, you can do whatever you want. But while you're working or while you have your business, you are supposed to hold off on everything. And I find that to not be motivating, and it's not really the way that we want to live our lives anymore. That might have been in the olden days, but it's 2023. It's time to modern it up a little bit and to live the life that we really want now, so that we have an idea of who we are when we get into retirement. And so it's really about how you work with somebody is how you really drill down on the details. Where do we want to go? Let's say it's Bali. And I always use Bali. I've never had one person say they want to go to Bali. So obviously that's something that I want to do, and I bring it up all the time. But let's say it's Bali. And I say, great, why Bali? Because I want to go in the beautiful infinity pools I've seen there. Fantastic. What does it feel like? What does it smell like there? What's the food taste like to you? How do you envision your room to look? How do you envision feeling at the end of the trip? How are you going to feel getting off that long trip from the United States to Bali? All that stuff, once we really get into the details of things, it's so exciting because it's almost like you're there. Whether that's the reality or whether that's the picture in your mind, it doesn't really matter. It gets you motivated to accomplish it. And I find that a lot of people, when they're working, don't take trips really. If they take trips, it's a lot of times like on the spur of a moment, because they might have a little extra money, like you said, or they might have an opportunity that they didn't realize was there. And when they do that, sometimes there's a lot of stress associated with that trip because they didn't plan for it and they don't know how they're going to pay for it, and they paid more than they thought they were going to pay, whatever that is. And we usually take the time off we get at work and we go and visit family, or we have family come visit. And not that I love my family, but that's not a vacation. That's spending time with your family. And so I do think we need to incorporate more things that help teach us who we are, so that once we get older, we get to choose what we actually want to do, rather than experimenting in retirement when you don't have an income coming in. And it's scary to try to experiment at that time because there is no money coming in. You put it away, you're done working. Why not experiment a little bit when we're working and when we're still having some kind of an income a little bit of a safety net there still.
Yeah, and it's just it's so dynamic the way you're talking about it, because you don't even, like, we don't know what next week's going to be. Even tomorrow something crazy could happen. So it's part of living for today. And then, if you wait till you're in your 60s, late 50s, your parents might need more of your time and you might not have the freedom or the body. Like if you want to canoe off the coast of Kauai, or not canoe, but a kayak, sorry, kayak off the coast of Kauai, and you're not strong enough when you're 70, right? Like there are certain things that are not available to a physical body, right? Like, and so I love that you're peppering in this and you're putting the seeds of, live your life. And then, I did ask my husband the other day, I'm like, well, I know what I'm going to do when he retires. Like I have a plan, and like I'm working my thing, and I could do podcasts till I can't I can't breathe another breath. Like I could totally do this. I love doing this, but he doesn't really have something that brings him just joy, that besides like golf. And you can't play golf 7 days a week. That doesn't fill a life. Like, and so we started talking. He's like, I got to figure this out. And I'm like, you do, because you're going to make me crazy if you don't know what your purpose is after, I see couples, like older couples, they sort of have a friction because the woman is still doing all her jobs that she did before she officially retired. And then the man is not used to helping out with the house or isn't interested in cooking. Sometimes they take that on, but it's a whole thing to deal with. And you just assume, oh, I retired and everything's going to be great. But the reality is you've got to figure it out. You have to have the plan. And some people don't want to retire. So maybe they should work 3 days a week, because they're going to work until they're 90 anyway. So they don't need to work a 5-day week.
Yeah.
So I love that do you have those conversations with saying maybe you're working too much, or do you
Mhm.
look at their investments and say, hey, this is where we could project? I mean, I love to hear, because we have financial advisors and they're awesome, but we've never, and we've talked about our dreams and things, but I love the way you're looking at it. So
Yeah.
please share some of that. I'm just so excited.
Yeah. So I only push as hard as somebody wants to get, obviously. So if they don't really want to dig in deep for their bucket list planning, I call it, or anything like that, it's up to them, obviously. But I think in some respects, I like getting into the nitty gritty of things. And the biggest thing, the biggest fallacy, I hate to say, in financial planning is that once you have your plan, you're set. You just kind of do your thing, put your money where you're supposed to put it, and everything's good. And it can be like that for a little bit, but life changes. I mean, I just got off a call with a client, and she got a raise, and she has this, and she's got, like, stuff is always changing. And it was funny, at the end of the call, I hear this sigh. I said, did I completely overwhelm you? And she's like, a little bit, but at least you're there. I said, okay. I said, this is not a one-time conversation. We check in, I'll check in with you in a couple weeks if you want to. And she said, that's fine. But I just think it can be a little overwhelming, this whole thing. And it is always changing. And our jobs as financial professionals is to bring up things that you haven't been thinking about, which I think is actually the reason why people don't want to necessarily work with a financial person. They either think, A, you have to be wealthy to work with anybody in finance, which is not true, or B, that, that they're going to bring up things that are hard, that that you did wrong, and that you're going to feel bad. I haven't really met anybody that I think sits there and wags their fingers at people and says, I think, you did the wrong thing. Like, I have never met anybody. There's some people I don't like in our industry, but I've never seen anybody treat a client like that. So I think that that's a misconception. I think the thing that people latch onto and don't realize is that this is an ongoing plan. This is not a one-time set it, forget it kind of thing. And that in retirement, it's even more complicated, because now we're trying to figure out how to take money out, and how do you fund your lifestyle. And things happen in retirement. Your stove can stop working in retirement just as much as it could stop working before retirement. Things happen that we don't expect to have happen. And you're trying to balance, how do you handle tax with the different accounts you have and all that. It can be very complicated. And then if you get an inheritance, how does that work? I was talking to another client who's been retired for a couple of years, and he said, if anybody told me how much harder it was going to be trying to figure this financial stuff out in retirement, I would have thought they were crazy. But it's very stressful for him, trying to figure out which bucket do we take it from, and how much tax withholding. It's a lot. And so I think, you've got to find the professional that works best for you, and you've got to find the joy in the planning, which is where the bucket list stuff comes in. It's still reminding everybody that money is not the root of all evil, which as women, a lot of times we have this funny aversion to money. And you called it masculine energy. And it's funny, I've heard both masculine and feminine energy. And I actually think it's the energy that we put on it personally. So some people, money really excites them, and some energy, it makes them feel weighed down. And I would say actually more times than not, it weighs people down, because they think of everything they think they're doing wrong. And so if we can get some wins under our belt and have some wonderful experiences, and learn how to use your money so that you're in control of it rather than it controlling you, that's where the stress comes in from money. And so the bucket list planning and the amount of detail that we go through, and the process of projecting and all that stuff, that's really just so you can get some control over your money. Once you're in control of your money, and I don't know if you're ever 100% in control of your money, but once you feel like you have a good sense of how your money's going and how you can control it and that kind of thing, that's when you really get to financial independence, because that's when you get to live the life you really want versus the stress of, exactly what you said, paying your bills, maybe putting some away in your 401k. And then you sit there at the end of the day and you're like, oh, what did I have to show for this? I mean, it feels so stressful. And you have, an $1,800 something comes up and you're like, how am I going to pay for this? Where does that go? I mean, money can be just extremely stressful if you don't have control over where you're putting it, how you can access it. And that can be tricky for people.
Yes. Yes. So I wanted to ask you, what is an accelerated? You've mentioned bucket list, but then
Yeah.
you also have this idea of an accelerated bucket list. And what does that
Yeah.
mean to you? And how do you explain that to your clients?
Yeah. So, accelerated bucket list is usually we think of our bucket list in retirement. I say we do it sooner than retirement. We do it in your working years. Just like I said, because a lot of times you don't know who you are in retirement. And so I was actually on a different podcast, and the lady was sharing that her friend thought he wanted to go fly fishing his entire retirement. Well, he's retired now and he bought all the gear and he did all this stuff. And he went out there and he said, I've never been so bored in my life. I don't want to do want to do this. Well, now his vision of retirement is totally shattered. It would have been wonderful if he'd been able to go out and experience fly fishing and see if he liked it and given it a chance before he retired. Because now he's got to try to figure out, and he's got nothing but time. Every day's a Saturday in retirement. So now you've got to fill up this void of time to try to figure out what you want to do versus being able to do it during your vacation, during your time off from work, and figuring out what you want to do. So accelerating just means actually pushing the timeline up, not waiting till we retire to experience our life, but to really push it forward so that we're able to experience those bucket list items. And it's that physical checking off bucket list items that really empowers you. I know you talk a lot about empowerment and that kind of thing, really empowers you to go, I can do this. I can hit my goals. I can do the other stuff I want to do, because I was actually able to go on that trip to Bali that I've never been able to go on before. I've talked about it for 10, 15 years, and I finally did it. There's a sense of satisfaction. It's a sense of accomplishment that happens. And it just kind of keeps you motivated to keep going forward for the next thing and the next thing. And you're getting to live the life you really want.
Yeah, so you encourage people like dip your toes in the water, try
Yeah.
it, and then you can, it brings depth to your life. You can bring more to your job, you can bring more to your kids or to your family. You have stories, you have an experience. You've broken away from the groundhog days or whatever, like go to the same 5 restaurants, and every
Exactly.
once in a while you just need to have an adventure, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
love
what
that
life's
movie.
about, is short.
It's short, yeah. I love that movie, Walter Mitty. I've talked about it before on different podcasts, but when he decides to go follow that photographer, it's just like so fun. And if anyone could watch that movie and just be inspired,
Totally agree. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah, that I totally agree with that.
it's inspirational. And the also the message of being in the present, like taking your pulse of your life, and maybe it's not going to be a big shift, but maybe you could just do something in the same vein. Like if you think you
Mm-hmm.
want to grow organic food in your retirement, maybe you just put some pots on your back porch, and
Yeah,
things like that.
absolutely.
Just sort of dip your feet in, and those meetup groups are great for that,
Mhm.
and you can find
Totally.
those in your area. Or yeah, so uh,
I met my
I
husband on a meetup group, so I love
no
meetup groups.
way. I
It's
love
just a
it.
hangout friends group, and I met him through that. So I love meetup groups.
You just don't know. And you just put yourself in a new situation and anything can happen. I have a friend, she was like looking for her man, and she sort of was like, just universe, just show me. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna go on a yoga retreat. And she took the time and she planned it, she saved the money, and she met her husband on the yoga retreat. So it's like when you just put
Yeah.
yourself in your joy, you put yourself in your life of love, things will happen, and money's going to flow in and money's going to flow out. And just, we're not, and you said this before, we're not an island. Like, we need to ask for help. You don't have to do financial stuff alone. You don't have to do anything alone, but especially financial. It gets to be, it's a vulnerable, and, being accountable for your spending. I know some people have like impulsive spending, or they retail therapy, and it can be raw, right?
Biggest
And
one.
you don't want
Yeah.
your financial advisor to tell you you have a problem, or, but it's something to look at, because if you're
Yeah.
retail therapy, then there's something else you're trying to fill. And your trip to Bali will resolve, you'll live a
Yeah.
simpler life because you realize that money
Yeah.
could be better used. Oh,
Yeah, I actually have a client who did that. She had this idea to go to, not an idea, it's going to become a reality this year, which is great. To go to Vienna and see a family over there that she'd never seen before or never met before in person. And she was funny. She said she went into Starbucks and she would go every single day, Monday through Friday. That was just her thing that she would do. And she just walked in and she said, not excited by this anymore. I'm going to take that money instead and go to put it in my Vienna fund. And that was a total choice on her own. I didn't sit down and, go through and go, you need to stop spending. She could afford Starbucks. She was fine to be able to do
mhm.
that. But she now makes it so I think it's every other Friday she will go to start. And she's like, I enjoy it so much more because it's a treat rather than, she was one of those types that would walk in and they'd have her order all ready to go and they knew her by her first name and all this stuff. And she said, I still have that relationship with them, but it's now every other Friday rather than every Friday.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That just brings me so
Yeah.
much joy, because that's what I'm all about. It's like, just look at what you're doing, and is it serving you? Like, just
Yeah.
step back and just, you might just find resources where you were just being, I call it the zombie life, where you're just repeating
Yeah.
patterns, and, mix it up.
Exactly.
It makes you a I was reading that book. It's a Carlos oh gosh, Carlos something, but he said the ultimate warrior. And the whole idea is the ultimate warrior stalks. He's always looking for an opportunity. And
Love
if you look
that.
at your life, and it's not like you're being, aggressive, but just try to stalk yourself. And
Hmm.
and what can you find out about yourself that you might change? And it's not to
Yeah.
judge. Like, if
Mm-mm.
going to Starbucks every day brings you joy, I am never going to judge that.
No.
But if you could put that money and have this wonderful experience that lights up your life more than that Starbucks cup, go
Yeah.
for it, right? Like, it's available.
Exactly. Exactly. And I actually have a resource if viewer or listeners are interested in this. Essentially it's on our website. It's under the resources page. And I'll make sure that you have the link and everything. But it's called Baby Step Your Way to Financial Independence. And it's 15 little things that people can incorporate in their lives that over time will make a massive change in your behaviors and in your habits when it comes to money. And that's really what it is. We always think it's got to be some big something, but sometimes it's those little things that actually will get you going, will get you started on something. And that just starting or just kind of making those little tiny switches can make a huge impact in your overall financial picture for the better.
I love that. I write about that in my book. It's like, look at what you own, and if you're not enjoying it, like, if you're
Yeah.
working to buy that thing, but you're not able to enjoy it, then maybe that's not the thing for you. Like, really look at
Yes.
it. So, are the things owning you, or do you own the things?
Exactly.
Mm. Well, I really appreciate it. And I am going to put your website in the show notes,
Great.
so people can check out that. And I love that offering of baby steps to financial freedom. I think that's an amazing place to start. Thank you for offering that. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, we love to.
Yeah.
I just want people to start. That's the biggest thing is we make it so hard to just start. And really if we could just start and do a little something every day, then we will find that we will be in so much of a better place than these huge lofty goals that are impossible to take on all at once. And then when we don't accomplish them, we beat ourselves up and say, of course I knew I wasn't going to do that. It's not the way we need to kind of come into it in a way that we set ourselves up to win rather than set ourselves up to fail.
Right. Like you can do this. This is attainable. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. It's not good old boys,
No.
secrets. Like everything's available to you. And, I know like people get scared of different financial terms like bull market and all these
Oh
things. And
yeah.
it can be daunting, right? And, but people like you are here to help. So thank
Yeah.
you for showing
Thank
up
you.
for other women and yourself. I mean, you've been courageous, and I honor that in
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm just so excited to get this information out there, and hopefully it gets one person to just take an action today. That would be wonderful.
Yes, you can do it. Bali can be in your scope. Or maybe you
Exactly.
decide you don't even like Bali and you want to do
Yeah,
something
I'd
else.
love to find somebody who wants to go to Bali. So you can always connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know I'm that person that wants to go. It'd be nice to
Yeah.
actually have somebody wanting to go.
Yeah, see if the food is really that good. The scenery
Exactly.
looks great. Well, thanks again. This has been a delight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie, for having me. This was really fun.